Hi, Sebastian. Thanks so much for joining us on Zoom. I know it's your morning time there. How are you?
Yeah, good. It's very Irish type weather here. We've had monsoon rain for 4 or 5 days, so everybody's looking forward to it stop raining.
I just want to start off by speaking to you a little bit about why you went to Australia. I think you're there over a decade now, are you?
Yeah, I came in August 2008, so I'll be here 13 years in August. It's a long time. Jesus, it's a long time. Yeah. I I'll be perfectly honest and say Australia wasn't somewhere that wasn't somewhere that I had looked at and said that's somewhere where I want to be. I'd spent a summer working for Neil Drysdale in California. Spent a summer working for John Ox. I spent a summer at Coolmore with Richard Henry. I was very much enjoyed the sport and the industry, but Australia was never a jurisdiction that held particular interest to me. But I got the opportunity to come down to work with Coolmore at Coolmore Australia. And I came down for 3 months and pretty much ended up staying ever since. It was fantastic. And I suppose in retrospect, I'm consider myself very lucky to be here now, the way things have played out.
Definitely. And you mentioned Coolmore there, and they've been obviously very influential in your career. Can you just maybe sum up your time there? What were kind of the key moments there? What were the key things that you took away from your time there?
Yeah, it was a fantastic place to work. I mean, it's an amazing farm. I was there at a time when Encosta De Lago was champion stallion. I was able to be part of Fastnet Rock becoming champion stallion. The emergence horses like Pharoah, and so you think it was from a stallion point of view, it was fascinating. There were a lot of good horses bred in the farm at that time. Winx, Vancouver, there are two good examples, but just year after year, the farm seemed to produce good horses, and so much of it evidently was as a consequence of a lot of good people that were there. So you got to spend time with a lot of very savvy people, and it's hard not to learn in that kind of environment. So I learned a lot, and it's been hugely beneficial subsequently, and I'm sure it'll continue to be.
Definitely. And so now you're at Inglis. I mean, how did that come about for you to switch to Inglis, I suppose?
There was an opportunity that was put in front of me. I'd been at Coolmore for 10 years, so I really enjoyed it, but there was an opportunity to come to Inglis in a bloodstock orientated role. I hadn't really given any consideration to it in a proactive sense, but when the opportunity arose, it seemed something I would have been very naive not to consider. It's a company with a tremendous history, a fantastic reputation, not just domestically but internationally. And a lot of what I discussed with people prior to coming to Inglis was, in terms of any particular role, was very stimulating, or the prospect to be very stimulating. A lot of good people working here. I was going to be joining a team with people like Jonathan, Simon Vivian, Mark's obviously tremendous experienced administrator, Andrew Muntz, those kind of people. So I was going to be joining a team that was, very knowledgeable, very competent, and effectively more people that I could learn from. And then there was going to be the opportunity for me to contribute in a constructive manner as well. So that stimulated me. And I was at a stage in my career where there was an opportunity for me to make a change, and I was probably going to either make a change or stay where I was for a long time. And, I took the decision to make a change. I haven't regretted it. I probably miss living in Laundry Valley a little bit. It's a great part of the world, but I really enjoy my time in Inglis.
Oh, brilliant. Well, we'll speak a little bit more. We'll speak about Inglis a little bit more a little bit later on. But I just kind of want to go back to the fact that you said that, you came down to Australia initially for 3 months, but you've ended up being there for 13 years now. That seems to be kind of a trend for a lot of young people. They go to Australia for like 3 months, 6 months, and then they end up staying there. I mean, what do you think it is about Australia that's such the lure is there to stay, I suppose?
Yeah, look, I think there are probably a lot of factors involved in that. I mean, I think a massive thing is that the racing spectacle is year round here. If you're passionate about racing, there's not really a month of the year where the racing isn't an engaging spectacle. And I mean flat racing. Obviously, jumps racing is a very marginalized sport here, a very low profile sport, but high class flat racing where you're seeing top quality horses, certainly in the context of what's in the bloodstock population here. They race right the way through the year. I mean, even in terms of a month like July, where there's very little in the way of high class races, through barrier trials and track gallops and things like that, you get exposure to the top class horses that are preparing to restart their campaigns through the Australian spring. So right away through the year, there's, great enthusiasm for the sport, and it's very easy to stay engaged with it at all times. The participants in this sport are really, really accessible in this part of the world, whether it's the top trainers, the jockeys, owners, breeders. For a young person looking to try and immerse themselves in the industry, it would seem to be a really easy thing to do. People are really forthcoming with their time. Majority of horses are trained in metropolitan areas of the major cities, whether it's Sydney, Melbourne, or Brisbane. To go and access those horses and go and spend time with people who train top class racehorses is really easy to do. A lot of the major farms in consolidated parts of the country, whether it's the Hunter Valley of New South Wales or Ngambia, Euro in Victoria, etc. Again, they're areas that are really accessible. People are generous with their time. And I suppose more specifically at Coolmore, it was a great opportunity to get responsibility, really get immersed in what's going on as a working farm. Or a lot of things that go on there that you can engage with, whether it's through the foaling season or yearling prep, just outside of work that you do in the office. And it was just a really stimulating environment to be in. And it flicked a switch with me, and I haven't really looked back up.
Definitely. And you mentioned there, I'm getting the sense of a buoyancy in that industry down there. And it is an industry that, you kind of look at from afar and think, God, Australia just has the model so right. In terms of prize money, the ownership and everything, how strong is the industry down there from someone who's living and breathing it every day?
I think I try and explain to people the concept of the narrative of racing is really easy to follow here. I remember probably 10 years ago now in Britain, they talked about at a program, I think it was called Racing for Change, where they were trying to understand how better they would promote the sport. And they used to discuss the narrative of racing a lot and how the average person would engage with the sport. The narrative in this country is really easy to follow on a very basic level. Every Saturday in metropolitan areas, so whether it's Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne, Adelaide, or Perth, there's racing in the city. There are 4 city tracks in Sydney, a number of city tracks in Melbourne, Brisbane. And so if you're a lay person or a casual observer of racing, that every Saturday, every Friday you'll be able to buy a form guide in the paper, and the papers carry very extensive form guides. You'll know exactly what's going on. You can go to the races. It's not expensive as a general entrant to go to the races. The promotion of it and the coverage of it is fantastic. So in terms of it engaging the general public, it's really very simple and very well done. And Australia is a very young country, and racing is just part of the social fabric here. You go to the races. Races are generally well attended. You go to bars and pubs on Saturday afternoons. There aren't too many bars without the racing on in the background somewhere. And so for it being part of the social fabric here, I would say it's quite an important part of it. Certainly relative to what you experience in other parts of the world.
Interesting. And in the time that you've been there, has the landscape of the industry changed much? Have initiatives changed, or the way that you promote the sport maybe? How has the landscape changed since you've been there?
I think most obvious change is the prize money's kept going up and up and up. There's tremendous competition between the respective jurisdictions, particularly between Racing New South Wales and Racing Victoria. I think it's probably most evidenced by the fact that Racing New South Wales introduced a new race, I think it was 4 years ago, the Everest, which was a $10 million sprint to be held in October. I think the first year it was run, it was either the same weekend as the Caulfield Cup or the weekend before the Caulfield Cup. And the Caulfield Cup, along with the Cox Plate and the Melbourne Cup, are 3 of the traditionally the biggest races of the year, and the races that make up the focal point of the Melbourne Spring Carnival. I mean, traditionally the autumn was Golden Slipper orientated in Sydney, and the spring Melbourne Cup orientated in Melbourne. So for Racing New South Wales to introduce this new concept or new race in the Everest was something of I suppose you talk about people who are game changers or people who are disruptors and want to try and generate want to try and generate a change in the sport, or a positive change, and that's something that did. And I think it's just created further and further momentum for Race New South Wales, and Racing Victoria's responded to that, and other states have responded to that. And I think just the constant growth in the prize money is a massive thing. And it means that, lay participants or people who are participating on a very basic level look at it and say, this is a sport I can participate in, and the finances actually make some sense. And that's, as we know, not the case in a number of other jurisdictions around the world.
Definitely not. But just speaking of finances there, and the prize money drives the ownership, and you've got a sale coming up soon. So we better start talking about your Inglis Easter sale. How is that all going? I mean, you're in the final stretch now before it. Are you happy with who's coming and the catalogue so far?
Yeah, look, it's been a really interesting 12 months from the point of view of trying to put sales together and run sales. So I think relative to the position we were in 12 months ago, it's a far more manageable set of conditions. 12 months ago, this time 12 months ago, we were planning for what ended up being a virtual sale with no horses and no people on the complex other than a few staff and a handful of buyers who were present in the complex. But preparations this year, other than the horrendous rain we've had this week, preparations this year have been far more straightforward. We have 466 horses in the catalogue. It's promoted as the best of the best, and it's not an idle boast. It's just a fact traditionally that each and every year the best yearlings that Australasian breeders have to offer end up at Easter, certainly a greater percentage of them, and then it's subsequently borne out in the results of graduates from the sale. Catalogue looks really strong this year. We try and put together it's a smaller catalogue, but we're still conscious trying to put together a catalogue that's well diversified in terms of vendors and stallion representation. And the book on paper looks fantastic. I've been up and down to various farms over the last few weeks just trying to check in with certain drafts, and the standard would appear to be tremendously high. Certainly the feedback from buyers who've been doing on-farm inspections in advance of the sale has been hugely positive, and it's hard not to be excited by the sale. I mean, obviously it comes with the millstone responsibility when you're selling people's best yearlings, but it's very exciting, and we're very much on track for a good sale.
Definitely. And it might be a bit of an unfair question, but is there any particular lots that really stand out to you, having heard what people say from the farm visits, and then obviously comparing that to the catalogue page? I know there's like 42 siblings to Group 1 winners, but can you maybe just sum up some of the highlights maybe?
I think maybe probably the fairest way for me to do it is just to talk about the quality of some of the drafts. I mean, I haven't seen every draft. One of the challenges of the pandemic has been that actually getting around the country with interstate travel restrictions has been difficult. So we were somewhat constrained by what travel we could do. It was hard for us to get to Queensland or Victoria or South Australia. So we were lucky to have a team we have obviously an office in Victoria, which meant that Victorian inspections could be done. But in terms of the draft, I've seen, there are certain farms that are synonymous with having fabulous drafts at Easter. Farms like Arrowfield and Coolmore spring most readily to mind. I mean, those two farms have incredible drafts of horses, both in terms of the quality of the stock, the pedigrees, the diversity of them. I mean, you look at a farm like Arrowfield and they have the best yearlings by horses like Schnitzel, Not a Single Doubt, Done Deal, and then you go to Coolmore and similarly they're outstanding yearlings by horses like Fasted Rock, Piero, some really outstanding second crop American Pharoah yearlings. You work right the way through the farms around the country, and particularly in the Hunter Valley, farms like Sedgenaw, Widden, Sledmere, Crestfield, Kiora. I mean, Yarman have a particularly interesting draft this year because it features the dispersal of some Shadwell yearlings, horses that ordinarily would never be available on the open market. So they have a set of credentials that are fairly unique. Right the way through the catalogue, it's really very hard to pick holes in it. We have some fantastic horses coming up from Victoria, farms like Rosemont, Yulong, then you have farms in the Southern Highlands like Milburn Creek, Lion Country, etc. It's a really fantastic catalogue. If you're a bloodstock enthusiast, it's hard not to get really excited about it.
Definitely, it definitely sounds like an enviable catalogue for any other sales company looking at it. I bet everyone's like, oh, damn. But no, it is a sale that it's worth looking into, and there's always huge, again, just to use the word buoyancy about the sale. The results are always fantastic. But then, you know, you get the results in the ring, but then those horses go on and they do it. You've mentioned kind of briefly just the graduates that have gone on, but can you just maybe in more recent years just kind of sum up who, you know, has been through the Inglis sales ring and has gone on to great things on the racetrack?
I suppose we're in a fortunate position where the majority of Australian breeders actually offer their best yearlings for sale. You know, we're not, you know, very few what we would call traditional owner breeders left. So you can be hugely confident that when you go to an Australian sale at any level, that the stock that's presented in the sale is the best stock that could be accumulated for that particular sale. So when you get to Easter and we say that they're the best yearlings that Australian breeders have to offer, you know, that's pretty much a fact. I mean, every good breeder, with the exception of Godolphin, is represented in the catalogue just about. So it's, you know, it's a fantastic collection of horses, and you said it's borne out in the results. I mean, there have been 23 Group 1 winning graduates of the sale since 2018. When you consider the number of horses offered through the sale each year is around 400, 450 after scratchings. You know, that's a very high percentage of top class horses relative to what's offered. You know, colts, fillies, 2-year-olds, etc. I mean, it's probably boring for me to waffle through all the good horses, but like, there's some genuinely world-class horses. A horse like the Autumn Sun, a really fantastic horse, would have made an impression probably in any jurisdiction. Merchant Navy, likewise, he did make an impression at Royal Ascot. It's a very hard thing to do, as time has demonstrated. Horses like Trapeze Artist, you know, he wasn't just an exceptionally good horse, but he was a horse who was capable of running track record breaking times. And I think any horse can back up substantive efforts with quality performance on the clock is very significant. Then you take fillies like Personal won the Oaks for Coolmore in the spring. You know, she's a filly that looks like she's going to be very hard to beat in the Oaks in Sydney in a few weeks' time. You know, right the way through the history of the sale, there are top-class horses both in Australia and then internationally, whether it's in Hong Kong. You take a horse like Southern Legend, who's been one of the best equivalent weight for age horses in Hong Kong over the last number of seasons. Ethero is one of the most brilliant sprinters there. Good horses in South Africa. You know, Run Fox Run won a Group 1 there recently. New Zealand, the Derby winner in New Zealand this year came out of Easter. Like, I could talk about it for a long time, but there are a lot of good horses coming out of the sale, so that's what gets everybody so excited.
Definitely. And you mentioned there that Shadwell are starting their dispersal. You know, was it a bit of a shock that they're kind of pulling out of Australia, and maybe how many yearlings do they have catalogued?
Okay, I suppose from the point of view of the Australian industry, it's very unfortunate because the participation of an internationally renowned operation like Shadwell brings a level of credibility to the sport here. You know, to have, you know, obviously we've a primarily domestic-based participation base, but the fact that we have international participants like Shadwell and Coolmore and Godolphin, etc., just brings an international focus to what we're doing and probably brings a level of credibility with it. They have some really well-credentialed horses in the Ironman draft. You know, they raised some really smart fillies down here over the years, and those fillies have gone on to be either, you know, promising young producers. And I'm Invincible called at a mare called Zam Zam. She was a very good 2-year-old. She was third in the Blue Diamond. There's another I'm Invincible colt out of a mare called Medinity by Exceeding Excel. She was very, very quick. And that colt looks like a fast colt. There's some really well-bred fillies. There's beautiful Exceeding Excel filly and a very good Schnitzel filly. But look, it's something unique about people being able to access those pedigrees, and Easter will be an opportunity for people to go and do it and then have racing upside with it. And it's quite an exciting opportunity. We're very grateful.
Definitely. And you've mentioned some of the sire power already, but I just noticed that there's some yearlings by the likes of Kingman and Frankel and Siyouni, and obviously the shuttlers that would come from Northern Hemisphere to Southern Hemisphere rather than the other way. That there seems to be a real buzz about those kind of horses, and Loop de Vega as well. I mean, why do they think that they're so attractive to the Australian market? I know they're, you know, phenomenal up here, but they are doing great things down there, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, we have some very ambitious breeders. You know, we have some breeders here who are determined to access the best caliber of stallion that they possibly can, and you know, I think that's fantastic for the market. And then the fact that those people are prepared to offer the offspring on the open market is, you know, great for the health of our industry. You know, horses like Frankel and Lord Canelo in particular, the last 12 months have made a really good impression. Both have very good 3-year-olds. Lord Canelaw's a good colt called Tagaloa, even a Blue Diamond. Frankel is a very good filly called Hungry Heart in Sydney. She's a Group 1 filly every day of the week. So I think when people see those stallions making a good impression with their offspring, it gives them a level of confidence, and then subsequently buying further offspring. Lope de Vega obviously shuttled here, did very well. And I think people recognise the fact that shuttle horses, when mated to the right sort of mares, have done well here, and it gives them some confidence to using horses that might be Northern Hemisphere based. I think a horse like Kingman, he's unlikely to ever shuttle, but people see the qualities that he has and his capacity to contribute. We're in this wonderful position where we're going to have the last handful of deep impact yearlings to offer through Easter. Some of those horses are pretty special horses. There's a colt at Arrowfield that's out of a race filly called Ome Sword. She wasn't a Group 1 winner. She was a Group 2 winner in Group 1 place, but I think she cost $1.7 million as a filly out of training or as a broodmare prospect. So it gives you an indication of how the market perceived her. And, to have a deep impact colt out of a mare of that quality is exciting for the market. And, so stallions like Siyouni's done well down here. If you're mated to the right sort of mares and managed in the appropriate fashion, really make a big impression, and, they excite the market.
Definitely. And you did mention there that 12 months ago, the look at the sale was completely different. But I've never been to Easter, but I've always heard great stories about the social aspect of it. Are you in a position to be able to kind of tentatively have that kind of social aspect of the sale this year?
Yeah, look, we have to operate the sale within the confines of certain restrictions, but those restrictions are easing all the time. Australia's found itself, in a relatively favourable position in terms of the pandemic, in terms of how things have played out. I mean, being a big island has been helpful, being able to manage our own borders, and we'll have a limited number of international visitors for the sale. Some people who've been, good enough to do the period of 2 weeks hotel quarantine and have been able to access spots in hotel quarantine and attend the sale. But from the mechanics of the sale, we'll be able to run a relatively normal sale. From a social perspective, it'll be good fun, but we'll be encouraging people to respect some of the traditions that have now become commonplace, like social distancing and hand sanitizing and all these other various features that seem to be par for the course now. But it's a great time of the year in Sydney. The racing is fantastic. Our carnival has been set back an extra week because of the bad weather we've had here, but it just means almost people feel like they're getting an extra week of fun through March and April, and Easter, the yearling sale, sits right in the middle of that, and I think everybody's going to have a very good time, and we look forward to welcoming everybody to Riverside.
Brilliant. Well, Sebastian, just before I let you go, I cannot leave the conversation without asking about Miss United, because she was one of my favourite horses when she was racing. She's done a few good turns for your family in the sales ring as well since she's become a broodmare. How is she?
Yeah, she's good. She's enjoyed the winter, and my dad said she's in great nick. I was talking to him yesterday, and he said she looks fantastic. So they've had a lot of fun with her. Like, she's just from a very sentimental perspective, she means an awful lot to my parents, and you put a lot of time and effort into breeding racehorses, and she probably came from a somewhat obscure background, but she developed into a really good race mare. She really enjoyed her racing. And Michael Winters did a great job with her. My parents were adamant that she'd have a crack at racing on the flat, and it worked out really well. And she's been managed a certain way as a broodmare, and fortunately it's worked out well. She's bred a group winner, and her second foal is a promising filly. So she hasn't disappointed. I think it's fair to say she's exceeded everybody's expectations at every junction of her life. So that's part of the fun of it.
Definitely. Well, Sebastian, thank you so much for taking the time, and I hope that the sale goes as planned, and we'll speak to you soon.
Thanks for that. Really appreciate it.